From the book of Job. Oh, that my words were written down. Oh, that they were inscribed in a book. Oh, that with an iron pen and with lead they were engraved on a rock forever. For I know that my Redeemer lives. At the last he will stand upon the earth. And after my skin has been thus destroyed, then in my flesh I shall see God, whom I shall see on my side. My eyes shall behold, and not another. A spoken word as we hear Job. I heard these words. Have you heard these words? I heard these words for the first time, like a sledge to my heart. These words for the first time cut like no other time, as I held Graham's hand and read them aloud. I heard these words so many years ago. I heard them as I sat reading what she'd asked, with tears welling up from places I didn't know were there. I sat wondering, how can there be another day? As I heard for the first time, I knew it was the last time. I felt her warmth, the yellowed fingertips and the smoke-tinged walls. I heard those words I now know too well. The reality of the absence. I knew that I wasn't there. I'm not here. By the skin of my teeth, as if skinned from my bone, scraping lacerations to my heart, cut into the bone so that marrow melts, and the languid, festering heat of loss and desolation. Desolation. What a word. We just don't. Such words, or the real stuff of it, desolation. Laid low, abandoned, set adrift. Your heart a small boat in the endless, windless sea. At the end of your wits, beyond the extent of your will, desolation. When all you expect, you don't expect to be around. Like that first romance in 7th grade at the dance. That's where Job is. At the end of loss. He cries, and no one shows. No one helps. Even frenemies assume you deserve and you earn. So deal, brother, deal. Calamity of your own living. Deal with the obvious calamity of your own living. Because it must be for a reason, right? I mean, am I right? I'm just saying. Job, oh Job, speaks in desolations. All loss, grief, and nothing is left. Skin cut from the bone, grief and bewilderment, utter desolation. Job cries out. The wasting away of your heart with a brokenness that is just a slow drip, 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 drip from your very being. And nothing is going to be left. The pain and death means you are buried, ready for a funeral. If only someone cared, if only someone was there, if only the desolation did not mean you were getting swept away in 1,000 little shards of heart and soul and mind and spirit. Job, oh Job, Job cries out. Maybe the words can remain like echoes in the empty halls of someone's ears. Maybe the words can remain like prehistoric figures carved with a metal stick on stone to be found millennia away by people with funny hats and titles and fancy brushes, because it is clear desolation is real. All is lost. I heard these words. Have you heard these words? I heard these words for the first time like a sledge to the heart. because these words scream, cry, beat on the walls, cut and bleed in my own heart. Job speaks from desolation to my own misery and glooms. Job speaks because all have abandoned him. And I know barrenness, days like deserts, drier and wider than the Sahara. Job speaks for my desolation and for yours. Job, oh Job, speaks in desolations, all loss, grief, and nothing is left. But to this skin cut from the bone, grief and bewilderment, utter desolation, Job still speaks, yet I know my Redeemer lives. Like a whisper in the dark, lost in the woods of my worst night terrors, a whisper that's as much a rallying cry, yet I know my Redeemer lives. Job's Redeemer, Job's Gaal, because that's a funny word for Job to use in the Hebrew, a strange choice. Job didn't call in Hebrew for a Mashiach, a Messiah, not some champion astride a white horse, festooned by gold, an unforeseen apparition, unconnected, abstract, and remote, anointed to come from nowhere. Job's Redeemer, Job's Gaal, was family, an uncle or auntie, someone with the means to do something, means to know better, means to pay, means to bail out. A Redeemer was family, because who else would care enough to do anything at all? Job knows he has a Redeemer, not far-flung and absent, and no less real. Job's Redeemer, Job's Gaal, lives. I heard these words. You've heard these words. Because these words scream, cry, beat on the walls, cut and bleeding in your own heart. Job speaks from desolation to your misery and gloom. Job cries out because this cannot be all. Job's Redeemer, Job's Gaal, lives. For unto us, as G.F. Handel connected, a child is born. For unto us, God has not abandoned us to desolation, loss in the grave. Death is not the worst, and death is nothing more than a hallway. For we are remembered, we are accompanied, we are companioned with a Redeemer who lives and not some crazy spook and apparition of your imagination, a phantom of hope, a glimmer of fancy. God gives a Redeemer, God gives a Gaal, kinfolk to come, to ride down and rescue, come down from the canyons in like an old spaghetti western. God gives a Redeemer that is family, known and related, recognizable like an auntie, approachable like a cousin. God comes not as a knight, but as my Grammy, shaking her head, but there nonetheless. Your Redeemer lives. Your Gaal is coming. She knows your desolation. Her heart aches with your tears. Job speaks from desolation to my own misery and glooms. And Job tells me again, God's love is so near, it's like the nicotine haze I knew in her kitchen. From my Graham, who spoke grace and showed me promise, an old widow redeeming my desolation. And if from her, how much more from God? Desolation is a death, but death is just a hallway. Grace is not far off. God is not an abstract. Your Redeemer lives, calling in the darkness of today's night terror, like the voice from 2 rooms over, speaking not in the desolation, but in the clarity of light. You are not alone. I am with you always, and calling you to find God's love with fresh eyes. And those are the words I need to hear for the first time, and again, and again, and today. Amen.